In the city of Veridia, where the rain never truly stops and the neon lights bleed into the puddles on the asphalt, everyone wears a mask. Some are crafted from silk and lies, others from steel and silence, but all are designed to hide the truth. On a night when the fog clung to the streets like a guilty secret, one of those masks would slip, and a detective would lose his way forever. The story begins not with a bang, but with a whisper of movement in the dark. An eye reflects the crimson grid of a laser security system. A gloved hand, steady and precise, bypasses a sensor with a touch that barely disturbs the air. A blade slices through the canvas of a masterpiece, not with vandalism, but with the reverence of a surgeon. The alarm screams into the night, a digital wail that shatters the silence, but the figure is already gone, vanishing into the shadows like smoke. All that remains is a single, impossible clue. A feather from a rare blackbird, and the faint, lingering scent of jasmine mixed with the metallic tang of gunpowder. Detective Kai Voss arrived at the scene as the rain began to fall, washing the city's sins into the gutters but never truly cleaning them. Kai was a man carved from the city's own weary stone, a brilliant homicide detective with a photographic memory that served as both a gift and a curse. He saw patterns in chaos, connections in the random, but this case was a labyrinth with no center. The phantom thief had struck 3 times, each theft flawless, each crime scene mocking the police with its perfection. The only signature was that black feather. Captain Reyes, Kai's superior, a man whose ambition was as sharp as his suit, pressed Kai for results. The city's elite were nervous, their priceless treasures suddenly vulnerable, and the pressure was a physical weight on Kai's shoulders. But as Kai stood in the empty space where a painting once hung, he didn't feel the usual thrill of the chase. He felt a strange, hollow pull, as if the thief wasn't just stealing objects, but pulling at the threads of something much older and darker. The first time he saw her, it wasn't in a lineup or a mugshot. It was in the gilded cage of an underground auction house, where money whispered and secrets were traded like currency. Kai was undercover, a shadow among shadows, his eyes scanning the crowd for a tell, a slip, anything. And then he saw her. Ilara. She moved through the room not like a guest, but like a predator assessing its territory, elegant and utterly dangerous. She was posing as a wealthy socialite, but Kai saw the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes didn't linger on the jewels but on the exits, the security details, the flaws in the armor. When their eyes met across the crowded room, the noise of the party faded into a distant hum. It wasn't just recognition, it was a collision of 2 solitary universes. In that silent exchange, the hunt transformed. He saw the danger in her, a lethal grace that called to the darkness he kept chained inside himself. She saw the obsession in him, the weary dedication that was its own kind of prison. It was a look that bypassed logic and spoke directly to the soul. Later, in a secluded hallway smelling of old money and newer deceit, the tension snapped. He moved to cuff her, a professional gesture, but she was faster. Her disarming move was a dance of violence and intimacy, her body close enough for him to catch that scent again, jasmine and gunpowder. "You're too late, detective," she whispered, her breath warm against his skin, a taunt that felt like a promise. Then she was gone, leaving him with a racing heart and the undeniable certainty that his life had just fractured into a before and an after. Back in his cluttered apartment, with the rain painting streaks down his window, Kai dug deeper. He reviewed the security footage frame by frame, and there it was, a reflection in a glass case. Ilara wasn't looking at the priceless artifact she had stolen. She was staring at a seemingly worthless family portrait in the background, her expression one of raw, unguarded grief. She wasn't just a thief. She was a ghost, haunting the places where her past was locked away. And Kai, the man sworn to catch her, was now the only one who could see her pain. The cat-and-mouse game evolved into something more complex. Kai traced the threads of Ilara's past, uncovering the story of a disgraced art historian who had died under suspicious circumstances, his life's work ruined by a man named Marcus Thorne, a ruthless collector with a taste for the unique and a history of burying the truth. Ilara was his daughter. When Kai finally tracked her to a safe house, a dingy apartment that smelled of turpentine and loneliness, he didn't bring handcuffs. He brought questions. "Why the portrait?" he asked. The walls between them, built on duty and deception, began to crumble. She revealed fragments of the truth. Thorne didn't just steal art, he stole legacies, identities, histories. Her father's research had proven that Thorne's magnificent collection was built on blood and theft. As they spoke, the air in the room grew thick, charged with an attraction that was as dangerous as the secrets they shared. It was a slow burn, fueled by shared isolation and the thrilling terror of being truly seen. That tension finally broke one rain-lashed night. An argument about trust, about the line between justice and vengeance, turned physical. It wasn't a gentle surrender, it was a clash of wills. He pinned her against the wall, his hands on her wrists, her eyes blazing with defiance that slowly melted into something else. The anger dissolved into a desperate, hungry need. It was not love, not yet. It was a primal recognition, a collision of two lonely souls in a world of shadows. It was lust forged in danger, and it was more addictive than any drug. The world narrowed to the sound of their breathing, the touch of skin on skin, the unspoken agreement that for this one night they would be real. In the morning, the vulnerability was terrifying. Sunlight revealed the truth of the night before. Kai, while she slept, found a hidden sketchbook. It was filled with drawings of her father, of the artifacts she had stolen, and of him. Dozens of sketches of Kai, watching, thinking, hurting. She had been studying him, long before he ever knew her name. They became allies, bound by a shared goal and a secret that could destroy them both. They planned to infiltrate Thorne's vault, a fortress of ego and security, to steal the digital evidence that would clear her father's name and expose Thorne's empire. The heist was a ballet of skill and silent communication. They moved through the laser grids and pressure sensors as one entity, a perfect sync of instinct and training. But as Alara's fingers closed around the drive containing the truth, Kai's police radio, hidden in his jacket, crackled to life. It was Captain Reyes' voice, cold and clear. "Voss. We have a location on Sinclair. Move in. Backup is 2 minutes out." The trap wasn't Thorne's, it was his own. His captain, his brother-in-arms, was on Thorne's payroll. The realization was a physical blow, a knife twisting in his gut. He looked at Alara, who was trusting him completely, her back to him as she secured the drive. In that split second, Kai made his choice. He shoved the drive into her hand, his fingers brushing hers with a final electric touch. "Go," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "The east stairwell, now." He turned not to flee but to face the incoming team. He drew his weapon and fired a single shot into the ceiling, the deafening blast creating chaos and a diversion. He saw the shock on Alara's face, the betrayal, and then the dawning, heartbreaking understanding. She fled into the shadows. Kai dropped his weapon and raised his hands, the taste of ash and sacrifice in his mouth. The interrogation room was a sterile box of lies. Captain Reyes leaned across the table, his smile a cold, thin line. "You chose her over the badge, over justice. For what? A thief's lies?" Kai, bruised and weary, met his gaze. "I chose the truth," Reyes chuckled, a sound devoid of humor. "The truth is a luxury for the innocent detective. You're just another corrupt cop now." Through the small window in the door, Kai saw a news feed on a monitor in the hallway. The headlines scrolled. "Alara Sinclair wanted for murder of Detective Kai Voss." Thorne's frame job was complete. They had not only stolen his badge, they had stolen his life and painted her as a killer. But they had underestimated the bond forged in fire. Alara, in a new safe house, saw the news. The grief that washed over her was tidal, but it did not drown her. It hardened her. It turned her sorrow into a diamond edge. Kai had taken the fall for her. Now she would burn their world down. She used her skills not to steal, but to dismantle. She became a ghost in the machine, hacking Thorne's financial networks, leaking fragments of the truth to the few honest journalists left, and preparing for a final, public reckoning. Meanwhile, Kai, in a holding cell that smelled of despair, was visited by a shadow. It wasn't Alara. It was a fixer, a silent professional hired by her, using a contingency plan they had whispered about in the dark. The message was simple, passed on a scrap of paper. "Trust me once more, the gallery opening. Midnight." Hope, a dangerous and fragile thing, flickered back to life in Kai's chest. Night of Marcus Thorne's grand gallery opening was a spectacle of obscene wealth. The elite of Viridia gathered to admire the new acquisitions, the stolen artifacts displayed under glittering lights. Alara moved through the crowd in a stunning gown, a vision of elegance that concealed a storm. Kai, bruised, in a stolen suit that didn't quite fit, was a ghost among the living. They did not speak. They did not need to. Their plan was a silent symphony conducted by glances and the rhythm of their shared breath. This was no longer a heist. It was an exorcism. They weren't stealing objects, they were reclaiming souls. As Thorne took the stage to give a pompous speech about legacy and beauty, the lights flickered. Then, every screen in the gallery, every digital frame, every phone in the room, lit up with the same images. Thorne's ledgers, the forged documents, the video evidence of her father's murder, and the financial trails leading directly to Captain Ray's. Chaos erupted. The mask of respectability shattered. In the panic, Thorne tried to flee, a pistol appearing in his hand. Kai intercepted him. Their fight was not the elegant dance of the heist, it was brutal, ugly, and real. It was the culmination of every lie, every betrayal, every moment of stolen peace. It was vengeance made flesh. Meanwhile, in the control room, Alara confronted Captain Ray's. It was a battle of wits and wills. He sneered, reaching for his weapon, but she was faster. She didn't kill him. She recorded his confession, his arrogant admission of corruption, and broadcast it live to every screen in the gallery, to the city, to the world. The truth, once unleashed, could not be caged. On the rain-slicked roof of the gallery, with the sirens of real police finally wailing below, Kai and Alara stood at the edge. Thorne was subdued, Ray's was arrested, but the cost was etched on their faces. They were both fugitives in the eyes of the law, even if the truth was finally out. The rain washed over them, a cleansing that felt like a new beginning and an ending all at once. "They'll never stop looking for us." "Not really," Kai said, his voice barely audible over the storm. Alara looked at him, her eyes reflecting the city's fractured lights. "I know, a life in the shadows, is that what you want?" Kai looked at her, then at the city that had been his prison and his purpose, and then back at her. He saw not a thief, not a ghost, but the woman who had drawn him in her sketchbook, who had trusted him with her pain, who had fought beside him in the dark. "The shadows are all I've ever known," he said, taking a step toward the stairwell door. He didn't take her hand. He simply pushed the door open, letting the warm light from inside spill out onto the wet roof. It was an invitation, not a demand. After a heart-stopping moment, where the past and the future hung in the balance, she followed him into the light. 1 year later, in a sun-drenched coastal town where the rain was a memory, and the sea was a constant, gentle song, a small, unassuming bookstore stood on a quiet street. Inside, Kai, with a quiet peace in his eyes that had once been filled with weary obsession, shelved books. His hands, once used to holding a gun or a handcuff, now handled paper and ink with care. Across the street, in a cafe with tables spilling onto the cobblestones, Alara sketched. Her hair was different, her posture relaxed, the sharp edges of the thief softened by the sun. She was drawing the sea, but her eyes would occasionally lift, crossing the street to find him. They would exchange a glance, and in that look was a universe of understanding. It was no longer the frantic, desperate lust of the safe house, but a deep, hard-won love, tempered in silence and forged in survival. They didn't get a fairy tale ending. They got a real one. Built on lies uncovered, on betrayals survived, on a love that chose to stay when running would have been easier. The past was a ghost that would always linger, a shadow in the corner of their eye, but it no longer held the keys to their cage. In the bookstore, on a shelf of old poetry, a single black feather was pressed between the pages of a worn book. It was no longer a signature of a thief, a taunt for the police. It was a relic, a reminder of the story that was finally, truly over. And in the quiet moments, when the wind off the sea sounded like distant sirens, they would hold each other a little tighter. Knowing that the greatest theft was not of art or truth, but of a chance at peace, and they had stolen it, together, from the jaws of the night. If you journeyed with Kai and Alara through the shadows, if your heart raced with their lust and ached with their betrayal, then this story has found its home. It is a tale for those who know that love is not always a safe harbor, but sometimes the storm you choose to weather with someone else. Remember, in every crime, there is a secret, and in every secret, a potential love story waiting to be uncovered, if only you are brave enough to look past the mask. Until next time, keep your eyes open in the dark, for that is where the truth, and perhaps love, is often hiding.